What's up? Are you unhappy? Do you wish you were happy? Do you wish life was easier? Maybe joyous all the time? Well, today, look, we're going to talk about how to live a happy life. This is the Existential Stoic podcast. I'm Danny, here with my buddy Randy. What's up, Randy?
Yo, Danny.
Do you ever, are you happy? And have you ever struggled with happiness?
I'm usually happy until someone asks me that question, are you
Yeah,
happy? And then I start thinking about it. And that's the easiest way to not be happy. But,
right?
happiness is an elusive beast. It's something that I think a lot of people try to have, to be. And it's one of those things where the only time you're going to have it is when you're not thinking about it.
Yeah, it is one of those things where, like, it seems like, the happiest I am is when I'm, like, doing stuff like either, like, hanging out with friends or with loved ones or, doing a work or something that's going really well or a project or hobby and like I'm engaged in something and present. It seems like I'm happy when I'm present, but once you take yourself out of that present moment, no longer, if that makes sense. When somebody asks you, are you happy? Like snaps you out of it. And then you
Mm-hmm.
think about it and it's like then all the other stuff comes flooding in. Because I swear it's like happiness exists in that moment. It can't have all the other stuff around it. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that's where it lives.
Yeah. I heard an interesting equation one time that said happiness is equal to reality minus expectations. So like if you think that things are going to be really good and in reality they're not happy. But if you have low expectations for something and then it's really good, you're like, oh, this is awesome. I love it. Yeah.
It actually kind of makes a little bit of sense. It's funny too, because I've also heard like they said, what was it? When they talk about, they said most people like optimism, like optimistic people tend to be happier, but it is like you're also like in a sense lying to yourself, um, to a certain extent, but it's helpful because of like motivation, energy levels, just being like, more positive, I guess. So it does make you happy. It's kind of funny that
Well,
like
it's like, would you rather be truthful to yourself or would you rather be happy? I'm like, I'll be happy any day of the
take
week.
happy any day of the week. I don't even know.
I'll lie to myself, whatever it takes. I'll be happy. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny too, because like I guess the thing with the happy life that always got me too is like people will always say they want to be happy, but it doesn't seem like they have a clear idea of what that means. And I think at least my gut sort of assumption is, and from talking to students in ethics a lot, I get this assumption confirmed is that most people think happiness is like associated more with feeling now. So like, feeling good, comfortable, maybe like, feelings of pleasure, stuff like that. And that leaves a lot of life out,
Hmm.
because that means you can only be happy in those times. And if you imagine being like that all the time, it's fairly unrealistic.
Hmm. Also, there's the whole false mental model that we have of like, when I get, do, or be, have this, then I'll be happy. And it's like, if you
Yeah.
look back through your life, because I did that, I still do that all the time, but I catch myself doing it now a little bit more often. But
I
like, I
used
look
to do.
back through my, oh my God, I used to do it all the time. I would be miserable and I'd be like, oh, this is what's wrong with my life. When I have that, then I'll be happy. When I achieve that, then I'll be happy. When this happens, then I'll be happy. And I can look back and those things happen and it didn't make me any happier, you know?
No, it doesn't. And that's the funny thing too, because we always tell ourselves, I think it might be like sometimes I think it is like a way, a way to get through like, something difficult where you're like, all right, once this is done, once I complete this thing, then it'll be good. But the problem with that is it is a total lie because you're not changing anything about yourself. You're just completing tasks. It's not going to make you happy necessarily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things that I do when I catch myself in that faulty mental loop is, instead of saying like, when this happens then I'll be happy, when that happens then I'll be happy, I ask myself, what can I be happy about now? Because when you have this if then thing with happiness, it guarantees that you're not going to be happy now, because you say, if my happiness depends on this thing which I don't have, then I need to get that thing. But that means that I can't have happiness right now because I don't have that thing that my happiness depends on. So I try and trick my mind a little bit where I'm like, okay, what can I be happy about right now? Oh, still got two legs. Pretty freaking awesome. How about that?
It's funny though too, because that is true. Like, when we engage in that kind of thinking of like, I'll be happy when this happens or when I get this, your happiness becomes a condition of something outside, right? You completing some project or achievement or acquiring some object or something. And it's like, okay, but you still have your whole life and you still have all the time in between. So what's going on? And I always found it funny too, when you look at all these ancient and not so ancient thinkers, thousands of years of human beings, all these very smart people that have asked this question about what's a good life and what's happiness, many of them seem to land on like, living in the present, enjoying the journey, you know, um, taking things as they come, being a good person. I mean, none of it is about acquiring things, usually not about achieving specific ends or goals. Like, it's pretty funny that we have thought this way. We've become so, and maybe it's because of like our society and culture, like we've become so oriented towards like, having the most, being the best, that type of thing, and thinking that if we're not the best or have the most, we failed. And so
Mhm.
clearly can't be happy, right? Because we don't have the most, so we're not the best.
Well, so I mean, you make a very good point there. The whole like future oriented perspective that we have, because I caught myself in this yesterday. I was sitting outside in nature and I was planning the rest of my day and the rest of my week and the rest of everything when like the goal for the past week or whatever was to spend this time out in nature. Like that was my goal to
And now
be
that you're
there.
there,
And then when I'm there, I'm planning for the next thing totally. And I caught myself in it yesterday. And then I was just like, whoa, I'll figure that stuff out later. Look around. And it was just like, oh, I'm in nature. How about this? Wow, look at that.
yeah, it's funny. I feel like I realized that so late in life that if I just focus on what I'm doing at the moment, it's so much better and I enjoy it so much more than when my brain's off in a different place. And I think we all know this, but it's so hard to like, it's like you ever try to watch a movie when you have something on your mind. You can't pay attention to it? And the same is true of like spending time with other people or being in nature or whatever you're doing. Like if you're thinking about other stuff, you're not there. You're just not engaged with it. And I think, you know, that's got to be one of the major faults to why we can't be happy is because we're constantly like not here or elsewhere. We're worried about, planning the week, like you said, or planning out the next 10 years or trying to figure out, it's like, and you just can't be present and engaged with what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other tricky thing, you were mentioning like the ancient philosophers and everything. And I remember Marcus Aurelius, he said something along the lines of like, stop living like you got 1,000 lifetimes to live. Like
Yeah.
you're here today, you're gone today. You got to start living now. But then on the other hand, it's like, well, you can't be so focused on getting stuff done, like so such in a hurry that you don't have patience. So it's difficult because you can't be you can't not do anything, but then at the same time, you can't try too hard. It's like you got to find the golden mean between like doing too much and not doing anything. And yeah.
Well, to that point, though, I think part of what he's suggesting, though, is that it's reminding ourselves that we don't have infinite time, not so that we can just laser, because when we think we have a lot of time, we just, we don't do anything. It's more to just, I think his point is to motivate you to do things that are most important to you now. Don't wait. Like if spending time with your friends or family or something is really important, do that then. Because you might not have time, right? You might die sooner than you think, or you're gonna die. I mean, keeping that in mind that, what I'm spending my time on is the time that I have. That's it. So
Mm.
using that to help motivate like good decision making, but that also implies that you make good decisions and you know what you want, which is, I mean, I think he probably did because he spent a lot of time writing, thinking about it. And even then, you see him go back over and over again to the same things because they probably came up a lot. You know what I mean? I think that's a difficulty.
Yo, as an aside, don't you think it would be cool to like go back in time and meet Marcus Aurelius? Like, I can't think of a single person living today who I actually want to meet, but like, I think it would be so cool to go back and meet him.
That would be awesome. Yeah. Well, it'd be interesting too, just because like he's such not what what you would expect for the person for the role that he was in. You know, he was the tippy top of that whole society, you know? Like literally. And yeah, and yet he
Yeah.
was like he was so humble and, you know, not I mean,
Mhm.
if you look at other Roman emperors and then you compare him to him, I mean there many of them are very far off from what, you know, very different, you know,
Mhm.
lavish, huge palaces, stuff like that. He was on the front lines fighting. I mean, it's pretty interesting to see. Like he was very humble and grounded, which is interesting. You don't get that often.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he would be an interesting
So,
character to
yeah, I think an important thing for happiness is cultivating relationships and friendships. That's
Yeah,
pretty darn important. And that's something that I kind of picked up later in life because I thought happiness was all about achievement, and then I went down that whole achievement rabbit hole, and it, got me nowhere.
yeah. Well, achievements, I think, can be good. I mean, they can add to our life, you know. But like, you know, it's always tough because I feel like we have a tendency to always focus so much energy on one thing, like achievements will make me happy or this, and we forget all the other that we're like, you know, a person's got many parts, many faceted, you know, and you kind of have to you have to have a whole life, not just like a very narrow life in order to be happy, probably. But yeah, I think you're right. Like, I mean, you know, cultivating friendships and relationships is really important. And I think one of the things that entails is actually cultivating good relationships, which takes time. And so you can't have, I think one of the mistakes people do today is they want all these acquaintances, all these, you know, likes and stuff on social media and whatnot, but they don't have real relationships either because you're spending all your time doing something that kind of is empty and an empty gesture instead of spending time on like real communication and stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's really messing up the like the mind or the psychology or the psyche of the youth
Yes.
growing up in an age
Yeah.
like this. Because there was some book that I was reading where it was talking about some newspaper headline where it was like child suicide rates are up, nobody knows why. And it's like it's very clear why. Like it's called
Yeah.
social media. It's very
Yeah.
clear why. And
It's
yeah.
crazy.
Hmm.
There's a nonprofit that does they check like on social media networks for like safety and stuff and they made I think it was TikTok. They made an account on TikTok and they made multiple of like as if they put in the like parameters that they were like I think a teenage girl, you know, young girl. And within 8 minutes they got content that was related to eating disorders and bodily harm for all these accounts, something like that. So it was like, you know, of course, because you're getting thrown all this stuff in your face all the time. And it's just, yeah, it's messed up. But you know, it's
Hmm.
funny. I also remember they were playing commercials for a while. I remember seeing them where like targeted at young kids, like probably like, you know, teenagers. And the whole point of the commercial was like, if your friend seems down, ask them why. Like if your buddy seems depressed, say something. And it's like and it just shows you, I think, is like, you know, people have lost the ability to have like good communication skills and really open up with friends because you need to be comfortable with somebody to do that. And I think that's
Yeah,
one of
but
the issues
also,
with this.
dude, with social media, it makes it so difficult because your whole entire life becomes something that everybody sticks their nose in and it's permanent record. It's like the
Yeah.
two worst things you could possibly have for your I don't know, your privacy, your own personal life is
Yeah.
all that.
Well, that's why everybody presents their life as if it's perfect because
Hmm.
everybody sees it, you know? They're not going on social media and talking about the real things that are happening. And like, you know, it's pictures from, you know, standing outside of this place and doing this. And like, yeah. So it is an issue.
Hmm. Oh
Yeah,
my
I think that
gosh. I think I have a problem. Is I get so I have fantasized the past week about like grabbing people's cell phones and just throwing it or like smashing it into the ground. I have a
you
problem.
talk about it a lot. Yeah, you do. You mention it quite often. I
It's
don't know
like
though, because it is
yeah.
frustrating though. It is like, you know, dude, I've been getting, you know, honestly, like because I had to teach the summer, so I was going driving back to work, you know, so I was commuting. And dude, the amount of people I saw in their cars who wouldn't go at the light would turn green and they just sit there. And I could see them like this. They're just looking at their phone or like, you know, standing in line and not moving because they don't even realize that the world, what's going on around them. They're just so engrossed in that, and it's aggravating.
Or
It really
dude,
is.
like the okay, so like the two instances. So one was in a library, and there are signs up all over that say quiet, and there's somebody typing on their phone, and it's one of those things where every button they click on their phone is like tick 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 tick
Because they
for
didn't
like
turn the volume off. Yeah.
yeah. And I just wanted to like grab their phone and throw it against that sign that said quiet. And then there was another thing in a locker room where there's like no cell phones in there because there's naked people,
Yeah.
and
Oh, obviously. Yeah.
this dude's just sitting there like playing on his phone, like naked playing on his phone. And it's just like, oh my gosh. Yeah. I have a problem.
Yeah. But
My
though,
life
it is,
isn't perfect.
my
Everybody
life's
else's
not.
life is perfect. My life is not perfect. Yeah.
No, I get you though. I hear you because it is. It's very frustrating. And I think, I think it's funny too because like we're we're old enough that we grew up without cell phones and without even computers really for most of our, you know, for most of the early years of our life. So we still remember, I think, very clearly what it was like. And it's interesting how it's changed so much. Like I remember waiting for stuff in line and people would all talk in line and stuff. And now everybody's just like on their phones, playing games and scrolling. Like it's really interesting, but it changed things dramatically. So yeah, I get it, I think. And we don't adapt that fast either. We're not, this is so new that it's probably messed our heads up so much dealing with it because we haven't adjusted to how to use it healthy yet.
So like I could when I have these things, I question like the hierarchy of rules. Because it's like I res I think, okay, I'm respecting a rule that if there's a sign that says it should be quiet in the library, it should be quiet, and this person's not respecting the rule. So then I'm like, well, I could grab their cell phone and throw it against the wall. But then I would be breaking the rule of not damaging someone else's property. But it's like, hey, they're breaking a rule, I'm breaking a rule, but two wrongs don't
Just
make a
get
right.
super glue and put glue on the back and just stick it to the sign.
That would be hilarious.
Well,
Watch him try and peel it off the wall.
I mean, especially the locker room, though, it's like that's especially a place where you shouldn't have your cell phone out because, people
Dude.
don't want pictures taken of them or video taken of them when they're changing and stuff and showering. That's
Mm-hmm.
not right. So, yeah, that's an
Dude,
area
but
where,
it happens so often in the locker room because like I, guys go in there and literally the only thing they'll be sitting in the locker room for 20 minutes on their phone. And there's a sign right next to them where they're sitting that says no phones. And they're on their phone for 20 minutes, like
yeah.
totally oblivious to this is a changing room, not a freaking
Well, that's just it, though. It makes you totally like it hijacks, like literally that idea of hijacking your brain is such a good way to say it because it does. Like you just see people, the world around them just disappears. And it's like they're just in this little bubble. And all that matters is what's on that screen in front of them. And yeah, it's not probably not a good thing because that's not the kind
mm-hmm.
of either being present that's healthy and promotes happiness either. It's the kind of being
No.
present that really destroys it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyways, how does one be happy? What is it even worth being happy?
And, I think this is the
Is
other
it
thing.
even something we can control?
Who knows? I mean, if it's a feeling and an emotion, maybe up to a point, but not totally, And if I don't know, I think this is the other thing about happiness that's always interested in me is like, how do we define it? What does it mean? And like I said, if you look back, like I do like a lot of the ancient definitions where the focus is on like things that you have control of, like your character, the type of person you are, and trying to live in the moment or in the present. And none of them think any of those things are easy. They're all very hard. They take a lifelong to work on. But the value of working on them makes you, more equipped to live in this world and be, you know, happy about it, or like feel good about your life or just feel positive about your life. And I think, so in that sense, I guess like a happy life is being, one where we're present, one where we, take care of all of our interests. So we have like a well-developed life is good, but it's so easy, nowadays to focus on just a couple things. And I think that really does get us. So knowing what happiness is important, what a happy life looks like. Because I think for everybody's different, with the continent life, it'll be different. You might want a family, you might want to live geographically in different place, whatever it is. But figuring that out is going to be a key part of it, probably.
Hmm. And then developing a character, when you mentioned that, it reminded me of something I heard where like the achievement of goals is important, not for actually achieving the goal, but for the person that you become in achieving them. Yeah. Because we were
Well,
talking about that earlier. Yeah.
well, no, it's funny is like I think that's the funny thing about education now too, because like education that that used to be the case was like you do all this stuff, and the point was is that you're building character traits and you're building an ability to do hard work and stuff later on and learn skills and stuff. It wasn't about just getting A's. But then it became all about, really just that and being at the top and getting high scores that the rest of it got forgotten. The point of like why you're doing it gets lost. It's not about getting an A, it's about what you're learning and learning the skills and learning how to think. And we totally just lost that. And I think that's, a huge part of it. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. If I had to summarize how to be happy, I have no idea. It's just
It's
I
harder.
I don't really put too much uh emphasis on being happy. Like sure, I prefer being happy to not being happy, and I think most people probably do, but it's something that it comes and it goes, and the more I want it and try to get to it, the more elusive it is. So
Yeah.
I always just I mean my thing is always just trying to find what I can be happy about here and now. I guess it's more about like contentment or enjoyment or peacefulness or one of those types of terms because it's more like I have food, I have clothing, I have shelter, and yet my mind still thinks I need so much more, but I have everything that I need. So it's like can I be content with this here and now?
Well, I like that. So it sounds like you're trying to focus more on being like present and being grateful or enjoying what you actually have rather than thinking you're always lacking something. Because when you focus on like the future oriented stuff, you're always lacking something, right? So yeah, I think that's a good, definitely healthy and a good way to look at it. It's funny, I think I always liked one of the things Aristotle says too is like the reason like why you want to be a good person and stuff is because it makes you more equipped to handle the ups and downs in life because you have a balance, you come at it from a balanced state, right? Like you're a balanced character and all. And I always think of happiness like that. Like a happy life is one where like, look, good and bad things are always going to happen. We can't control like things in the world, right? So people might die that we love. There's going to be accidents, there's going to be disasters, stuff happens. But how well you handle it and how you respond to it, I think is directly related to, your present state of being, like whether you're happy or not, or whether whatever you want to call it, right? So character development there for him was important because you just have a balanced character. You're better equipped to handle those things. You're not going to fly off the handle. You're not going to go to one extreme or the other. And so I think for me, at least, a lot of it is that like working on myself to try to get to that point where, what life throws at me, I can handle in a, better way. And I am not like, it's not totally determining, my state of mind every time something happens around me.
Mm, yeah, that's a good one. I like that. So yeah, I think that's a good place to end it.
Okay, there you go. So there you have it. Hopefully, I'll help you guys live a happy life, or at least, keep trying to, because that's important. This is the Existential Stoic Podcast. Check us out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Please like, share, subscribe. It helps us out a lot. If you have a few minutes, we have a survey. It's in the link in the show notes or description. It only takes a few minutes. We're going to try and create something that hopefully will help you guys out. And if you do the survey, you will get it for free. So please take some time to do that. And we'll be back later this week with a quick fix. Until then, later, Andy.
Later, Danny.